A human life is sacred. It is sacred in its being born. It is sacred in its living. It is sacred in its dying. A human life remains sacred by our remembering. We gather on this autumn afternoon to lift up the name of Heidi Haley. And what a glorious day she would have been hiking in the mountains on an autumn day like today. We come to honor a human life that blessed this world with her presence and through her living, her educating, her empathy, her ability to see a person as they were and as the person she knew they could become. We come together, family, friends, colleagues, students, and Wawona neighbors, to commit to the preciousness of memory, a life that was mingled with our own. There is sadness, there is loss in this room. One whom we love and who has loved us. One who shared the mountains and the beauty and bounty of nature. One who has been part of our lives for so many years is no more among us. In the face of this loss and this emptiness, we can only assert that love never ends. In the face of our loss, we remind each other that love is the answer to life and death. As Forest Church asserts, the one thing that can never be taken from this world, even by death, is the love we have given away before we die. Each of us lives between two eternities. Each birth causes us to wonder where that spark of life comes from. Every death causes us to wonder what aspect of life continues. Joel Miller writes, "We can't say with certainty what will happen when we die, but we do know we are part of a great stream of life that began long before we were born and will flow on long, long after we die. We share immortality in our connections to the universe and through the small, unique ways that we change the world. We find sadness, but we find joy in remembering this. And recognizing this mix of feelings is part of grieving and celebrating. And as Liv said, this is a celebration of Heidi's life. Heidi's home and heart was in the mountains. She was deeply connected to the natural world and its wondrous and simple splendors. She was nature's child. Heidi lived attuned to the cycles of the season and the wisdom that can be learned if we but listen to the land, the stones, the water, the clouds, the trees, the animal world. Michael Tito writes, "The cycles of nature teach us about life, a part of which is death. We can learn to let go, to release our being into the universe, to recycle our atoms and our energy as part of our planet's breath. We can learn to live after the death of someone close to us, to know that they too are part of all that is around us. And so, today, we celebrate Heidi, knowing that she is interfused with our thought and blended into the lives of those she knew and journeyed with. In that spirit, I invite Liv and Liana to come forward to light a candle of remembrance and joyful celebration of their sister and aunt.
I put it out.
It's okay.
That was me, not her.
I've got matches.
Heavy breathing. Thank you. There we go. Thank you.
Heidi's sister Liv wanted joy and a sense of liveliness to be part of how we celebrate Heidi, hence the music and the clapping at the beginning. The music that we're sharing this afternoon will reflect this. It may be a little non-traditional for a celebration of life, but we wanted to make sure it was a celebration. Our opening song is called Heart Wide Open, and it reverberates with Heidi's generosity, her empathy, and optimism. Since most of us don't know this song, our band will play and sing through the first verse so you can see and hear how it sounds, and then we'll all join in and sing verse 1 again. So I invite us to rise, embody our spirit, and sing Heart Wide Open.
1, 2, 3, 4. You gotta keep your heart wide open. Though the waves wanna push you around, you gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith brings you back to solid ground.
We invite you to join in.
You gotta keep your heart wide open, though the waves wanna push you around. You gotta keep your heart wide open till your faith brings you back to solid ground. I'm gonna keep my heart wide open. The waves gonna push me around. I'm gonna keep my heart wide open till my faith brings me back to solid ground. We've gotta keep our hearts wide open, though the waves wanna push us around. We've gotta keep our hearts wide open till our faith brings it back to solid ground.
she has put on invisibility. Dear Divine Spirit, I cannot see, but this I know. Although the road ascends and passes from my sight, that there will be no night, that you will take her gently by the hand and lead her on along the road of life that never ends. And she will find it is not death, but dawn. I do not doubt that you are there as here, and you will hold her dear. Our life did not begin at birth. It is not of this earth. And this, what we call death, it is no more than an opening and a closing of a door. And in your house, how many rooms must be beyond this one where we rest momentarily? Dear Divine Spirit, I thank you for the faith that frees, the love that knows it cannot lose its own, the love that, looking through the shadows, sees that you and she and I are ever one.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. You kind of can't miss with Leonard Cohen, can you? Thank you to all of you who are here this afternoon online and in the sanctuary at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno. We're gathered today to share stories and remembrances of Heidi Haley's life. My name is Liv, and I am the oldest of Heidi's 3 sisters. The other 2, Diane and Gail, live in Oregon and are with us online today. Each was in Fresno for an extended period of time during Heidi's illness. Liana, one of her nieces, assisted then and is here today. Georgia Watson, who is Heidi's niece as well, put together our slideshow for today. She organized Heidi's candy recipes, and they are available here and on the Chapel of Light obituary site. That's one of the first things that many people started asking me for. Where are the recipes? With our Heidi's memories today, there are several important themes throughout her life. The biggest and probably most consequential one, of course, was about the time she spent in the mountains of Wawona, which is in the southern entrance of Yosemite National Park. Remember that children's book, Heidi of the Mountains? Well, we had our own. From her childhood until her passing, the mountains are where she spent her most treasured free time. In the beginning, our family summers centered around the river and the cabin, which was initially built in 1947 from a Montgomery Ward's double garage kit. Eventually, as an adult, she designed and constructed her own mountain home in Wawona, and it took about 10 years. She also worked at the Wawona Hotel as a server when she was in college at 19 and later at 34. She had current relationships, friendships with people she met there during that era, as well as neighbors that she met earlier. In her retirement, she also joined the local Friends of the Library Board. Wawona was and always will be one of her main communities. She met her husband-to-be in the Yosemite High camps when they were in their 20s. She worked there, and he was a mule wrangler for the pack animals. He was a really, truly cowboy. He later became a contractor and built one of our cabin additions. Heidi was the youngest of 4 girls. She was born in Stuttgart, Germany in 1954. I was 7 years old. We moved almost yearly because of my dad's career as an Army officer. Fortunately, our mom found sports, dance classes, and music lessons for us in many of the new places that we lived. Most summers, we motored across the United States, usually with a cat and a dog and no air conditioning, but our destination in Wawona was its own reward. We had unlimited safe outdoor space, clean river water to swim in, and even a small neighborhood of children to play with. Mom kept track of us, but we had freedom to roam and were left to our own imaginations. It was heavenly. Even with our age differences, we each had our own friend groups. One of Heidi's earliest playmates was a second cousin whose family was part of our neighborhood. Cherie Wolfson and Heidi maintained a friendship throughout her life. You'll see several pictures of them in the river as children. Cherie adopted Heidi's cat, named Roxy, and blended Roxy into her animal family. Thank you, Cherie. While in the 2nd grade, Diana, Heidi, and Gail all went to a one-room schoolhouse on the other side of Wawona. That year, our dad had an assignment in Korea, and of course we could not go there. The girls had a 3-mile bicycle round trip to school. There was 1 teacher, no aide, and 5 other children, a total of 8. At Badger Pass, when there was snow, though there wasn't much that year, they had ski days at Badger Pass. And yes, my mom did drive them to school on snow days. Heidi continued skiing through the whole of her life. This particular story exemplifies the girls' quality of education that year. The teacher in their school was named Mrs. Gregory. She was about 70 years old, which was ancient in those days, and her husband Berthel hadn't any teeth. They lived in the back of the schoolhouse. One of Mrs. Gregory's teaching goals was for the children to have good grammar. To that end, they were to write examples of inappropriate syntax they heard from each other up on the board. For every 10 misspoken sentences, they got 10 minutes of extra recess. Well, we girls grew up hearing excellent grammar in our family, and Mrs. Gregory's language skills were not as polished. Consequently, the contest had to be discontinued because the children were getting too much recess. I thought that was great. As a 3rd grader, without any apparent effort, Heidi became the family card shark. My parents played cribbage, and Heidi asked to learn. In short order, she was beating them. She was 9 years old. There was also a game called concentration, when all 52 cards are placed down and you take turns lifting them up one at a time until you can see a duplicate match. Well, she was so focused and successful, she wasn't any fun to play with. She played to win, and trust me, she did. I'm not sure if this is a related brain skill, but when she was an adjunct professor at Fresno Pacific University, one of the classes she taught was statistics for the school psychologist master program. As an adult, she recognized she was dyslexic, but regardless, she attained a master's degree in neurobiology. Her first Fresno Unified School teaching job was testing children for learning disabilities. Later, she and Deed Skills were the lead crisis counselors for the district, and if I'm not mistaken, there's 74,000 children in that school district. Our mom would not buy a television, so we were either outside or we read a lot. One day in midsummer, when she was a rising 5th grader, she came up to the lunch table on the cabin deck and apropos to nothing announced, "It's a dog-eat-dog world." There was silence. We looked at her, and then we started laughing. When asked, she said she'd read it, but she didn't know what it meant. She just liked the way it sounded. Since her mom was a PE teacher, excuse me, we all did athletics indoors and out. Our winter in Lansing, Michigan, Mom bought each of us ice skates and a pogo stick, stilts, and a unicycle to share indoors. We had a big basement, so my mom strung a line from one ball to the other. We all tried to learn, to ride the unicycle, parents included, and Heidi was the only one that mastered it. In her sophomore year, excuse me one second. She and my mom lived in Hong Kong while Dad was in Vietnam. The rest of us were on our own. At the international school, Heidi was the right size and strength for the gymnastics team. She advanced rapidly, and by the end of that year, she could do multiple running, head-over-heel flips, on a long series of mats. I mean, to me, that's astonishing. Excuse me. Her junior year in high school, she was in the right place at the right time to be recognized and appreciated for who she was. Though she had been in the school for only a short time, she was nominated and elected to be the Snow Queen. That's the picture. The picture is included in the slides, and you can see she positively glows. She was so happy to be liked and included. Sadly, later that spring, my dad's work forced another move, and Heidi had to change schools. Another constant in her life was her animal companions. She was very disciplined, and even though she left for work at 7:15, she made time every morning and evening for a half-hour walk with her dog. Her dog's name was Emma, a black lab, and she was trained to respond to voice and hand signals. And she had better manners than many humans I know. Emma did not know she was really a dog. The result of walking Emma and Emma's predecessor, Haley, made Heidi a very fast walker. During the last 6 months of her life, she and I often walked several times a day when the heat permitted. She would also walk on her own in the early morning. Her normal total was 3 or 4 miles a day, even during chemo treatments. She had a fast pace and had to slow down for me. For quite a while, she didn't really look sick. Her strong body helped her somewhat tolerate the chemotherapy. She and I believed until it was painfully obvious that she was not going to have a remission. Our real miracle happened when we came together as a family to help and support her. We experienced a peace together that we'd never had before. Thank you.
I feel like it's a puzzle, and all of that you just said, just were like, yeah. So many stories I can think of relating to what you said. Heidi and I worked together for 25 years as school psychologists, for 20-ish more as co-instructors at Fresno Pacific in the school psych grad program. And we traveled together for conferences as well as scuba diving vacations and diving in many beautiful places over the years. And we'd all be here for a while if I said all the things I wanted to share with you today. So I tried to narrow it down. And I thought of like 10 stories just off of her comments. I'm so grateful that I got to know Heidi as well as I did, and share pieces of her life with her. I really hadn't thought about it until she passed, but we've spent a lot of time together. When we were teaching, we would spend 2 nights a week and at least 2 weekends a month together. And when we dove, we were together for at least that whole week. I think back on all those hours we spent preparing and teaching and grading papers for Fresno Pacific. Those were some long weekends. Because, you know, Heidi was very precise and fastidious, and it was good there was both of us. I countered that a little bit. But we had fun. We would work a little bit, then we would laugh and get off topic about something else and talk about other things and eat. And of course, it was always something like yogurt and granola and fruit. And although I love all of that, she ate like a bird, and I was usually still hungry. Went back for seconds. And when we went places to eat, she would always ask if I wanted to share something with her. And my answer was always the same. No, Heidi, I'm hungry. I eat more than you do. Look at me. Look at you. And after a while, I think she would just ask me just to be funny, because I'd always give her the same response. We went diving. We left work behind. We talked about fish and the coral, some of which looks like our cartoon characters on some of our testing things. And we talked about the dive masters. She would always tease me about them. But sitting and chatting in the hammock with a beer after a dive and eating dinner and drinking monkey lalas was the best. She was truly at home in nature, whether it be in the mountains or in the ocean. It was wonderful to see the contrast between her work and her play. I really do cherish the times that I was able to enjoy the outdoors with her. She loved them. Like I said, whether it was scuba diving in Mexico or Roatan or Dominican Republic, or walking near her home in Wawona, which she called her cabin. And I said, Heidi, it is not a cabin. It is a beautiful house. And I guess because it's in the mountains, maybe you say it's a cabin, but it was a beautiful cabin. And it is a reflection of her and her favorite things. And it did take her a long time to build, because she was so meticulous about everything that went into it, that home. It was all well planned. There was not a random item, board, floor, anything that went into that home. I have good memories of my time there and looking out at that view. For those of you that have not been there, huge, beautiful picture windows looking out over the river. You couldn't really see the river, but you could hear it. And in the winter, stunning with the snow. A few years ago, I went up for New Year's, and we went for a walk, which you always do when you go anywhere with Heidi. And then you could hope that you could keep up with her, like Liv said. And she's the only friend that I have that could keep up with me. And so we were pretty good walking partners. There's a hill next to her home, and on the way back, I asked if she had any sleds, and she did. And I said, let's go slide down that hill. And we probably spent 2 hours walking up that hill, making tracks, and then sliding back down, and trying not to go over the bump into the road. We had to kind of dig a little bit and make a berm so we wouldn't hit it. We laughed, we got stuck, and we just had a good time. We played a lot. Heidi didn't drink much at all. However, one time we were in San Diego at a conference. We went out to dinner with a very large group, and Heidi ordered 2 margaritas that night. And she said to me, I have to go to the bathroom. She said, but I don't know where it is, and I don't think I can find it by myself. I said, all right, I'll go with you. Because again, I can have more than 2 margaritas. So we go, and we had to go up the stairs to get to the bathroom. And she says, I can't do that. And so she grabbed my belt loop of my pants, and up we went. She were following me with the belt loop. Got to the bathroom, went to the bathroom, belt loop all the way down and back to the table. It became known as the belt loop incident. Yep. That trip was filled with good memories, from the belt loop incident to watching Nemo. If you know, you know. If you want to know, you'll have to ask one of us that know later on. Heidi was good at her job as a school psychologist, one of the best. She was good because she was thoughtful and kind and intelligent, compassionate, and she never stopped learning about her craft. And we always would tell our students, when you think you know it all, you're in trouble, and never stop learning. And she advocated for the students she worked with and acted always in good faith. She helped parents hear difficult news with grace and compassion. She made a difference in a lot of students' lives. She made a difference because she was able to talk to students and their families about students' strengths and not what they couldn't do, but what they could do and what they're capable of doing. She helped them to grieve, to guide them through tough decisions, and was compassionate, even listening to fifth grade girl drama and helping them through all of that. Her administration knew they could depend on her expertise and the ability to communicate with staff and parents. She was good at teaching for many of those same reasons. She was concise, prepared, and thoughtful, and maybe most of all, humble. If she didn't know the answer or needed to find something, she would go do it and then come back and give it to the person. And she was always very careful with her words. She thought about what she was going to say before she said it. I have very good memories with Heidi doing a lot of different things, and I smile when I think of her. I want to thank her family for allowing all of us to have a little bit of time to talk story about her and maybe share some things that people might not have known about her. My mom, after my dad died, got a message. She said this message came to her as clear as if someone was in the room talking to her. And the message was, your space feels empty, and yet you know this is not an empty space. This is a holy place where our laughter, tears, thoughts, and memories will always come together. And out of all the sayings and things I've read about grief, this message comforts me the most, so I wanted to share it with you. It's not an empty space. It's a holy place where memories of Heidi's love and laughter are present. And thank you, Heidi, for giving me wonderful memories of our friendship.
Hello, my name is Carol Johannes. Heidi and I go way back, like 30 years. We officially met in the copy room at Faulkner Elementary. She, the school psychologist, and me, a sixth grade teacher, frantically getting copies made for my class. We started some small talk, and like many educators do in January, we shared what we'd like to do the following summer. Heidi said she'd like to take an extended backpack trip to Yosemite and was hoping to find someone to go with her. I said, you found her, I'll go with you. Heidi being the amazing administrator organizer, and me needing someone to organize me, we were the perfect pair. Every year from then on, we would find ourselves new mountains in the Sierras to explore. Heidi taught me how to fish, how to thank the fish for its life. She taught me how to sneak up on them, how to hook them, and how to clean them. She made sure I put SPF 50 on the tops of my ears and my nose. And of course, that makes me laugh even now. And we continue to tease each other about that throughout the years. I was Heidi's play buddy. I convinced her to get a road bike, and we went only a few times because she was much more cautious than I, and she gave it up eventually. We did do a lot of mountain biking though, because there were no cars. I remember many trips to her cabins in Wawona and taking long hikes in the woods. We had many deep and rich conversations on those trips. I think of Heidi as a mentor. She was a gifted psychologist. The challenge was to get her to talk about herself. She had this way about turning the conversations back to me. I learned from her how to do that, steering the conversation back at her. And at times, I was successful, getting her to share her life dreams and personal stuff with me. Heidi had so much love for others. Anytime I'd ask a fellow school psychologist if they knew Heidi Haley, they would brighten up, smile, and speak so warmly and highly of her personally and of her gift of being a psychologist. My dear friend Heidi has stretched and assisted me in growing my beliefs and faith over the years. She was one of those close to my heart and in my circle. I would let her in and trust she would hold my heart close to hers. She was that person to me, always a phone call or lunch date away. I believe Heidi and I are connected on a spiritual level also. It's pretty wild. There have been so many times I would think of her and call her on the phone, and she'd be calling me at the same time. Sometimes the phone wouldn't even ring, and she was there. She had this way of challenging my faith and belief systems throughout the years, assisting me in growing deeper in what I believed. We had some great discussions on the topic. The craziest thing is, as I was writing what I was going to say today to you about the spiritual side of our friendship, the backpacking equipment stacked in the room completely fell over, as if she was hiding behind it and pushed it over. Heidi is now in another place, another dimension, where I can no longer see or physically give her a hug. But I do know now she has been even closer than ever these past months. I'm kind of still lost without her, but I know and I'm trusting she is with the divine. I'm trusting she will continue to show me ways to love others, as she was so amazing at doing herself with others. I miss you, Heidi Mighty.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Deed Skill. Heidi and I worked together as school psychologists in Fresno Unified for well over 20 years. Seems weird saying that out loud. But we also worked really closely together as lead psychologists, as Liv mentioned earlier, for the better part of a decade, from mid-2000s to around 2015. It's hard to know where to start when I talk about Heidi. She meant a lot to me. So I'm just going to start from the beginning. So I actually got to know Heidi quite a bit before we became lead psychs. We both shared this passion for professional learning. We're like, why isn't everyone going to these workshops? And there were a few of us with like minds and sitting here, and so we got together and we would go to workshops, or we would help each other out at each other's schools, and it was great to find those people with that same passion, and Heidi definitely shared that. So it was around 2004-ish, I think. Our director had asked me to pick another psych to go with me to it's like a 4-day master training in San Francisco on a reading assessment, and he's like, we need to have another psych go with you. And I immediately said, Heidi. And I wasn't really sure at that point why I thought that. But then as I was writing this, I thought, yeah, I know. It's Heidi exuded this confidence, this feeling of someone who's just solid next to you. She would use the word solid a lot. It meant something to her that she was that person for someone else. And I was still a pretty young psych back then, and I needed that. And that's why I chose her. And didn't know that later on our paths would cross again in our professional world. So we went to San Francisco, spent 4 days together. It was a pretty intense workshop, but we got to hang out afterwards, have dinner together, and kind of debrief about our day. And that's when I got to know Heidi. I used to think she was kind of proper, and a little reserved. And in her Heidi way, she probably was, but she's just so easy to talk to. This sense that everyone else has been sharing today of calmness, of spirituality about her, you just felt really connected to her. So we started the beginnings of a great friendship right then for those 4 days. So fast forward a few years, and we're now lead school psychologists in the kind of mid to late 2000s, around 2008, and we were thrown into some very lean times. When the Great Recession hit, our department was trimmed down. Heidi and I had to do a lot of managerial things that we did not expect that we were going to have to do. And Heidi was built for this, the administrator. And so she got to work. Folks that know Heidi know that she's a type A personality. The folks that really know her know she's type A plus. Perfect for our roles as school psychologists. Always had her speaking notes. For those Kelly and Tim were teaching, knew that too. There's always going to be notes, and Heidi's always going to be prepared, no matter what. And you just have to go along with that. You don't have a choice. But I don't know how we would have survived those years without what she called her organizational brain. And those first few years were very tough for us. We had a pretty demanding boss. We had 7 a.m. meetings, sometimes 7 p.m. meetings. And for those first couple of years, we worked 6-day weeks. And we'd come in on the weekends, and Heidi would be like, let's get this done. And we would be prepping for stuff, for a meeting, whatever it might be. But those times really helped us grow closer together, professionally and personally as well. So when we faced those tough times, we did it together. We truly were one position with 2 people, but we were able to work together pretty seamlessly. Heidi always had my back. That confidence, that feeling of someone solid again was just really prevalent. She also cared deeply about me, and about everyone else. She would often tell me, it's a 7 p.m. meeting. You have your kids' deeds. You need to go home. You go home and do that, and I'll take care of this meeting. She would often do that. And my kids would always share the stories of the toffee and fighting with each other who was going to get more, and Heidi would always make an extra batch for them. My kids also would come in at the beginning of the school year often to help when they were younger, to help put together all the packets for our psychologists, for our trainings at the beginning of the year. Heidi loved this. So those of you that know Heidi, she got everything organized on a table. Everything was there. The folders were ready. But that was that part of Heidi. The part that my kids got to see was the care that she used to guide them, of how they were going to do it, what they were going to do, helping them if they made a mistake. Those are cherished memories that I'm glad that they had too. My daughter is here with us today. In fact, she's now 19. So as I reflect back now, I was pretty blessed to have Heidi in my life. It was a two-way street, as others have shared. So I did try to make sure I imparted myself on her as well. And Heidi's always that learner that wants to ask questions and really did challenge herself as well. But I think I helped loosen her up a little bit as well. I think we all probably played a role there. Like when I first heard her curse, oh man, I was like, wow, I'm getting somewhere. So as the years went on as lead psychs, we did learn to have a little bit more fun together and had a bit more time to do that. Heidi would have these weird cravings for donuts. I don't know what it was, but she's like, Deeds, I'm having a pang. I'm like, what are you having a pang for? Donuts. So we would go and have coffee and donuts. And as many have shared today, Heidi was tremendously fit, stronger than me, stronger than you. She ate well, she took care of herself, but it was just really cute to see her indulge those times and have fun. And it was just random, but I really miss those times. And our bond got even closer. And when I went through tough times, she was the one that would ask me, hey, are you really okay though, Deeds? And like Carol shared, she'd get it out of you. And you'd be able to talk things through and find some resolution. And then you'd also get one of those Heidi hugs. And those of you that know. Toffee at Christmas. If you know, you know, Kelly. And there is the Finding Nemo incident, which I don't have time to go through today, but if you do want to know, come and see me or Kelly or Carrie afterwards, and we'll fill you in. I would like to close with one more thing about my friend that truly shows the person she was to me, and pretty much to everyone she encountered. So in my culture, in the Sikh culture, one of our central tenets is something called seva, which translated means service, but more accurately is selfless service. And that was Heidi. Whether it was talking to a grad student from Fresno Pacific or one of our interns. In fact, the intern that I have right now is one of Heidi's trainees, and she worked with her all the way up until June, until she couldn't. Or I've listened to her talk to her parent on the phone and just walk them through that difficult conversation about learning about a disability for their child and what we are going to do, though, about it. Working with our psychologists, mentoring them, pushing them, working on the weekends for them. She never stopped. She didn't complain. She just did it in her Heidi way. I miss you, Heidi. I miss our conversations, the laughter and the tears we shared, the reassurance you brought me, and that spiritual calm that was you. And thank you for letting us be here and share what we really loved about our Heidi. Thank you.
Hello. I've been asked to sing a song. I hope you're all ready to join me in this song. It's a sing-along, in case you couldn't tell. There's a lot of songs out there about being a seeker, but this song is about being a finder, okay? The song's called Hey Look, I Found It. I'm going to sing the first verse, and then after that we'll all hopefully join in. And if you guys feel the spirit, sing along with me, okay? Ready? Hey, look, I found it, my inner peace. Hey, look, I found it, my inner peace. Hey, look, I found it, and it felt like such sweet relief. I finally found my inner peace inside of me. Now y'all sing with me. Hey, look, I found it, my inner peace. Hey, look, I found it, my inner peace. Hey, look, I found it, and it felt like such sweet relief. I finally found my inner peace inside of me. Now it's my empathy. You ready? Hey, look, I found it, my empathy. Hey, look, I found it, my empathy. Hey, look, I found it, and it felt like such sweet relief. I finally found my empathy inside of me. Now just the band one time. And the world goes round and around and around and around. Sun shines out for us all. place to run, no place to hide. And the world goes round and around and around and around. And when I'm feeling small, open up myself and look inside. Hey, look, I found it, my inner peace. Hey, look, I found it, my inner peace. Hey, look, I found it, and it felt like such sweet relief. I finally found my inner peace inside of me. I finally found my inner peace inside of me. I finally found my inner peace inside of me. Thank you.
We know that this room is filled with so many memories, so many stories. We don't have time for all of them, but we want to create the space for a few. So I'm going to bring over a microphone, set it up here, and if you would like to share briefly the way Heidi touched your life, a brief story, we've created that time. And I'd say if you want to share, if you just give a hand wave, we'll know. Please.
Hello, I wanted to go first so I would get my turn. My name is Cheryl Montgomery, and I'm not gonna go into detail with how, I was gonna say how I met her and how I evolved through the time with her, but no time. So, first time I knew her was when I joined the Roding Elementary School staff, and she was our school psychologist, and amazing. I'd have coffee with her every day for lunch. We'd share our lunch, we'd go over our IEPs, we'd talk about our meetings that we'd have. Another way I knew her was I found out she was my backdoor neighbor diagonally to one side. My husband and I would go on walks with her and share her dog with us, and the lady Roxy. And I got to go up to her cabin one time and spent the day with her and went on a hike. And everything that everyone has said, yep, I've done it, yep, I've done it, yep. Toffee, baklava, I mean, so many memories. She was just such a special friend. And the time after she retired and I retired, we would walk a lot and we'd get together as often as we could. It just wasn't long enough, and I really miss her. Thank you.
Valerie.
Good afternoon. In 1995, I went back to school to be a school psychologist and met Heidi at Fresno Pacific, along with Susan and Tom Hendrick, which many of us know and remember with love. Heidi was in our group, and we found herself often in the same classes, but she was just a wonderful student. She was the person to have in your group because she was competent and kind and prepared and all the things that people have said before. And I just wanted to bring that part of her. I remember us talking, I'm looking at Susan, many times about her driving back and forth from Yosemite to complete that program, which put an extra, I don't know, edge to her. So, thank you.
Please.
As a student, a grad student at Fresno Pacific University, Heidi was my instructor. And yes. I'm sorry, I'm Wayne Jones. Yes, I'm sorry, everybody. And Heidi and Tim were my instructors. And I wasn't the brightest in the class. I struggled a little bit. I tried, asked a lot of questions. I was like trying to get this thing. And I'm watching the classmates ahead of me, like Ashley and Caesar and Kim, of course. They're really smart. I ain't there yet. But Heidi saw in me, I didn't see myself. So when it was time to graduate and get a job, I said, Heidi, I don't think I'm going to First Unified. I don't think I'm ready for that level of assessment, that level of job yet. Heidi looked at me real low and high and said, you will apply for First Unified. I said, okay, I'll apply. And I got the job, and I'm glad I did. So Heidi saw in me what I didn't see in myself. So thank you, Heidi.
My name is Ashley. I met Heidi years and years ago. She is somebody that has influenced all of us personally and professionally. I have had the good fortune of at FPU to continue to be able to speak to her a lot because my interns have her as their university supervisor. But once you're in the Fresno Unified game, it's really hard to get out. So Heidi and I would have conversations on the phone a lot, and she would ask what's going on still in the district. And we all know that there's tough times, and it's very political, and there's a lot that we deal with. And so she wanted all the tea, and she would be like, okay, here's what you're gonna do. And I'd be like, Heidi, I'm not lead, I'm not a manager, like this is, no, but you guys gotta fix it. And so I think for me, one way to honor her is Heidi never lived in the misery of what we do. She just always was solution oriented, and she didn't complain, she wasn't a martyr, and she pulled you up out of that if you got sucked into it. Like, that's just not the way in which she lived any aspect of her life. So I think that I will always continue to honor her and be solution-oriented and just try to be the university supervisor she was for so many people for as long as I can.
It has been said that no one person can sum up the life of another. We all have little bits and pieces. Together, we have the mosaic. And the mosaic would be hiking in the mountains. So, Liana, you have a reading for us.
In the mountains, we remember her. I invite you to respond with "We remember her." On an early morning walk, or with the setting of the sun, we remember her. With the calling of the jays, or in the quiet of the night, we remember her. In the blowing of a storm, or the chill of winter snow, we remember her. With flowers on the trail and the gift of every spring, we remember her. With the bluest summer skies and the tumble of the river, we remember her. In the quiet of the autumn with its dappled dogwood groves, we remember her. With the depth of every ending comes the promise of the new. We remember her. We can feel her forest spirit when we pause amongst the trees. We remember her. For as we live, so too does she, for she is a part of all of us in the clear mountain air. We remember her.
Please join with me in the spirit of reflection or prayer. Let us pray. O love undying, we commit the memory of Heidi to our own hearts as she is returned to the love from whence she came. Eternal and loving Spirit, giver of life and so also of death, we remember Heidi's sisters, Liv, Diana, Gail, and her nieces, Leanna and Georgia. May they be comforted at this time of parting. We hope they remember her well, understanding and forgiving her imperfections and treasuring the shared moments of happiness. For Heidi and for all of you who have gathered to celebrate her this afternoon, deep peace of the running wave to you, of waters rushing, rolling, falling. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the warming sun to you, illuminating the majestic universe. Deep peace of the shining stars to you, lighting our hardest nights with hints of infinity. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you, moving slowly, constantly reborn. Deep peace of the human spirit to you, learning, loving, leaving, letting go. Deep, deep peace of the endless cycle of life to you, of which Heidi will always be a part. Deep peace of the infinite peace to you, this day and evermore. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen. Before I offer our release and benediction, a few brief words on how we'll end the service, and then I'll invite Liv to come up and offer some gratitude. At the end of the service, I'm going to escort Liv and family out into the foyer, and please allow us to make that short journey, and then would invite you to head down the center aisle to pay your respects. And then if you go outside and turn to the left towards the tables with purple tablecloths, there will be a reception, time to continue sharing stories, sharing memories, sharing so many smiles, and also sharing the tears. Liv.
Whoops. Well, before I start, isn't this amazing? Yeah, thank you. One of our church friends did that. I'd like to acknowledge Reverend Tim, the church's office staff, those who set up the sanctuary, the house band, Stolen Thunder, the electronics technicians, as well as the food servers. Excuse me. Heidi did not regularly attend church, but she came here and she could picture herself at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno. That's why we're here today. Next, I'd like to recognize her two main doctors for walking the path of Heidi's medical journey with her. Each physician also had teams who helped her manage the difficult days, and there were plenty. Her oncologist treated the cancer and monitored its effects on her strong body. Early on, we found out her tumor was inoperable. But since we were in complete denial, we kept researching cancer remissions anyway. We asked him impossible questions like, what's going to happen and how long does she have? Though we often chose not to believe him, He remained kind and informative. Too soon, all of his available options, were not acceptable to Heidi. She had too much pain. Concurrently with the chemo treatments was support from a palliative care specialist. He helped her treat her physical pain so that she could have a somewhat normal life. This worked for a few months. Then he listened as she processed the emotional cascade that starts with knowing there is no return to normal. When Heidi went on to hospice, Liana, my daughter, who is also a palliative care physician, was able to notify the hospice nurses whenever Heidi became uncomfortable. Heidi received the best possible care. Pain care is for the patient's comfort and not considered a healing treatment, so it is available for patients in hospice. She also had 2 emotional and spiritual guides, professionals who helped her review the life she was leaving and prepare for what was to come. With each one, she processed the wide range of attitudes and emotions that she would experience in her final days. She chose to be present and then to live with courage and dignity as she grew weaker. She passed into the mysteries of death peacefully at home, surrounded by us, her family. During this process, Heidi gave us the opportunity to be our best selves while serving her and each other. It was her last and greatest gift. Thank you for being here today. I think Heidi would be honored that each of you chose to spend the afternoon with us. Thank you.
I would ask, as we're willing and able to rise in honor of Heidi's life. And now, into the hands of time, we release Heidi Haley. Having left us now, she goes free of the earth. Radiance knows her. Grown lighter than breath, she is set free in our remembering. Grown brighter than vision, she goes dark into the hill that holds her peace. She is hidden among all that is and cannot be lost. And for us, the living, may our love for Heidi be witnessed, renewed, and strengthened on this day and henceforth in our caring and love for others and for this earth, so that we may be part of the world's hope and not its fear, its love and not its hate, and so we may know in new and deeper ways the great mystery of life that connects us all. May it be so. Blessed be. Amen.